Okay, so today we're going to be doing a smoke test of our MSI Z170a Gaming Pro Carbon motherboard. As you can see, it's mounted in our Corsair case, and basically we just have to hook up the power supply cables, and we're going to hook up the fans. We're not going to be doing a full smoke test. We're not going to be going into BIOS, even though obviously BIOS will be booting. We just want to basically get a preliminary idea that everything is okay, which means that in the case of the MSI Pro Carbon, we should see a lot of pretty lights. And so that's going to be our initial test, and then we're going to be moving on to the next step in a later video where we actually go into the BIOS and upgrade it. So let's get started. The main thing here, we have these cables which came with the power supply, and this is the main power to the motherboard. It looks a little bit odd on this side because it's broken up into two parts, but I guess that's because some of the older motherboards would only take a 20 pin, and this provides some additional power. So we're going to be plugging this in down here, which is the only 24 pin connector. So if I can get this right, it's only going to go in one way. If I do this, it's just going to snap in. I'm already grounded to the case, so I'm pretty good here. And then there's this other little piece here that just goes in right behind it. And I'm just going to pop that in. Okay, so I really want to make sure these are seated properly. I'm just using a little bit of force here on the Corsair power supply just to make sure it plugs in. And then when I pull it out, it really should not pull out unless I use the release lever that is on each one of these connectors. Okay, so that much is in. I'm also going to come over here and take what is called the Type 4 connector. But what's really important about this is on the other side, and it's going to be routed up here, or probably through another one of the routers, it says CPU. So this is a CPU power. The other power is actually for the motherboard itself. And I'm just going to basically pull this back through for now. And I'm just going to basically connect over here. On this RM650, if you look on the top row of connections, because everything is modular, you can plug in, you're plugging in this Type 4 connector over here on the right for the CPU. And you have to plug it in just right so that see that little release lever? That release lever on this side has to be up. And once you do that, you should be able to give a little bit of a tug, and you should be able to see that it's not coming out unless you press down on that release lever. The same thing goes for these other two connectors. Okay, so now that we have the power supply connected, I'm going to take the 24 pin connector, and I'm going to route it up through here. Try to have the case support most of this heavy connector. Now this one, if you look, there's also another lever here, and we want to make sure that that lever is on the right side. And the way it looks here for the motherboard, it's going to go in just like this. And these are keyed, so they only go in one way. You cannot put them in the wrong way. But obviously you don't want to apply so much force that you break anything. So that looks good. So that's the motherboard power, 24 pin. Okay, so now we're ready to plug in the CPU power. We already plugged in the motherboard power connector. And this is best routed up through the back here. Let's see if I can fit this through. It's kind of a tight fit, but it does fit once you get it in there. And then of course I want to make sure you're grounded before you go ahead and start messing around here. Okay, there we go. So it's a little bit of a tight fit. We're going to be routing this up through this top slot. Now, one thing we have to mention at this point is, since this is the top of the case, one problem I know we're going to have already is with our Corsair H110i. One of the problems with the 280 millimeter cooling system is there's not enough space up here. And that's the main thing. So even though this Corsair H110i mounting bracket does fit the MSI Pro Carbon, The real limitation in our case is the size of the case. So the 230T is not the right case for the cooling system that we have. So we might have to get a little bit creative in solving that problem, or we have to buy another case. But for now, we're just doing a smoke test, and we're not going to be doing any overclocking, so we're good for today's video. So I'm just going to take this, and once again, I am just have to plug this in correctly. Let's see if I can do this. Give myself as much slack as possible. I just have to turn this boy around and then pop it in here. One of the problems can be limited visibility, so you want to make sure you have enough light. Because obviously, I mean, the power pins are pretty strong, and they're not really likely to break, but some of the other pins, especially the USB 3.0 pins, are very, very close together, and they will bend and break. Once you bend one of those guys, you're not going to be able to bend it back into place. It's just going to break off. So be careful, especially with the USB connector. Alright, so now we got the CPU power in place. I just want to make sure I'm applying enough pressure and that when I use a gentle tug on it, it's not coming out. So that's good. So we have the power connectors for this smoke test. We're also going to connect the fans. Now, obviously, we're not going to get ideal cooling right now because, you know, the case is not closed. But we're going to have the fans going at least because, well, it will do a little bit of airflow, but also it'll show some of the lights that are in the fans for this case. So we're going to start with this one connector, which is this fan back here, and we're just going to connect this down. If you look at the motherboard, all these connectors are labeled, and there is one called sys fan all the way down here, and we're going to use that to connect. So we're going to go over here and use this sys fan down here for this fan. See if I can get this plugged in correctly. So that's one fan that's in there. We'll deal with routing the cables later. And then we have a couple more these are the front fans, so the front panel fans are here. What I'm going to do is there's a CPU fan here, so we're going to leave that for the cooling apparatus. And we're going to take one of the sys fan. Hopefully I can reach that from here. There's a sys fan right here, which is actually I wonder why they have the CPU fan over there. This is going to be kind of a stretch. Let's see if I can get just the way I'm routing it here. So you definitely want to route it so that you have as much play, as much ability to move the wires around here. Having a little bit of difficulty with this one connector. This is sysfan 3 that I'm trying to connect to, and we have the sysfan 1. Definitely when trying to connect these things, you don't want to be applying too much pressure. If you are applying too much pressure, likely you're going to be breaking something. So let's see, I got this guy here. That seems to go on right. We're going to try this guy again. And one thing that's a little bit confusing is these are 3-pin connectors and the fans are all 4 pins. So that's a little bit confusing if you haven't done this before. You want to make sure that I'm probably going to look at the double check the specs just to make sure I have these correct before I do the power up. And this guy up here is especially giving me a little bit of trouble, so I want to make sure that I double check how this guy's going in. Alright, so I finally got that in. I'm going to do a momentary break here and check the documentation, because obviously before we power it up we want to make sure that the fan connectors are in properly. It would be probably only minimal damage, but I don't want to do any damage to the motherboard. Okay, so we're just about ready to turn on the power, but there's a couple last items I want to cover. For one thing, these fans, I just did a little bit of research on the MSI Z178, Z170a Gaming Pro Carbon, and you can see that the Corsair case that we have has the 3-prong fan connectors, and the MSI Z170a Pro Carbon has 4-prong, which means that it has the ability to slow the fans down or speed them up. But since we only have the 3-prong, that means the fans are going to be going 100%. So that's one thing to keep in mind. So the case that we have, the Corsair 230T, is really not the best case for this, because all these fans, unless you replace them and get some fans that can be regulated, they're going to be running at 100%. So I'm going to put this back on. As you can see, there is a little groove on this one side, so it really can only be put in one way. So once I do this, and I plug it in, so we have everything connected. The last step before I actually turn it on, I want to use this this dust cleaner, just to kind of clean out any hair or anything else that got in there from us putting it together. So we're just going to do that. We're not plugged in at the moment. You can see occasionally some condensation does kind of escape and get onto the board, so we're going to let the board rest a little bit, make sure everything evaporates. So let's cut that for now. Okay, so we're actually now ready to turn this on for the first time. Now what we want to be aware of on this smoke test, since we really don't have any peripherals connected to this, we only have the fans connected, is there's 3 LEDs, if you can see them, right above the power connector, and they say CPU, DRAM, and VGA. Those lights, if those come on, and if they stay on, that means we have a problem with those components. So hopefully those don't come on, they'll make my life a lot easier, but if they do come on, that means that we have a little bit more work to do. So I'm going to get the power ready. Over here we have a battery backup surge protector that we've had for a while. We're using this just to make sure, especially when we do anything with power later, especially when we're installing software, we want to make sure the system's not resetting because of a power outage. So we're turning on the backup power here. So as that guy turns on, I'm going to take the power connector here and plug it into our power supply. Our power supply is currently off, and it should be off when we're doing the initial power up. Alright. Let's see, I want to make sure this guy's on. Just getting a beep from that guy. Okay, why don't you flip the switch? Let's see what happens. This is the moment of truth. Okay, we have no power. So this guy is really not generating any power here. So let's see what's going on with this guy. Okay, that's on now. Alright, then no, you don't need to turn that on. I don't think you do. I could be wrong. Let's go over here. Let's turn on that back switch. Is the back switch on? Okay, so there's one more step we have to do then. So let's do a cut. Okay, so we have a couple more switches or cables that we need to connect here, and I was I thought we could avoid connecting the HDD LEDs because I figured anything that's just an LED we didn't really need for a smoke test. But we really got nothing here, and I don't know if it could be just potentially that, you know, here's the reset switch. Maybe the reset switch needs to be in there as well. So what we're going to do is we're going to connect to the JFP1. And if you look over here, you can see JFP1 is right here, and it's really this guy right here. This guy here is the USB, JUSB2. So we're going to connect here, and we're going to follow our directions here, HDD LED. I'm going to put all of them on, even though the LEDs, obviously, I'm not as concerned about those right now, but I think it's going to help me to get everything right. So I'm going to put the HDD LED on first. So that's the hard drive LED. And so JFP1 is right here. I'm just going to connect. So, and then probably I'm thinking, oh, here's the power switch, and this is a two switches. So likely this is why we didn't get power. That's my guess right now. So, and then the reset switch. Where's the reset switch? Okay, I'm going to put the reset switch on first because that'll be a little bit easier. That's going to go right next to the hard drive LED. That on. All right. Okay, so then the power LED, HDD LED. So the reset switch. Oh, so you have to look at the pinouts here. So we have the HDD LED on there, and the power LED goes right above that. I'm not too concerned about that. The reset switch goes right next to that. We got that on. And the power switch is right above the reset switch. So I'm going to take the power switch next. And that's going to go right over this guy. I'm going to put it in the same orientation, which means I'm not going to be able to see it. So I can do that. So there it is, the power switch. So presumably that's why we didn't get power. Okay, then there's only two loose connections here now. Okay, we have the power LED plus and the power LED minus. And of course, those are going to be going above the HDD LED. So that's going to be power LED plus has to go all the way to the left. So there's power LED plus. That's right here. So we're going to do that guy first. Of course, I have a little bit of limited light here because once I get my hand in there, it kind of blocks the light. So that's a little bit of a negative there. Okay, oh, there we go. All right. So it's easier to connect the power LED minus first, and then we're going to connect power LED plus. All right, so now I do think we're ready for the smoke test. I'm hoping that not having the power switch on there was the reason that we couldn't do anything before. So here we go, turning on the battery backup. That is now on. We're not plugged in, and if we're good here, we should start seeing some lights. Okay, nothing there yet. Now I have not hit the front panel here, so hopefully the front panel is what's causing our problem. Awesome. Now we are seeing a DRAM LED issue here. Oh, then that went off. That's a good sign. So let's let this run for a little bit. We got the fans running here. The fans are pulling air in. And when you come over here and take a look here, you have the fans in the front that are also pulling air in. Okay. So it looks like this first step of the smoke test has worked. Oh, but then we have VGA turning on. That's not good. So, of course, we also don't have our graphics adapter in yet, so maybe that's why that's on. So I'm not sure if I should be too concerned about the VGA at this point. But this LED right above there, that's a debug LED. and that's telling me that there's a problem with the VGA. So let's. Okay, so we have an initial smoke test that has a little bit of concerning results if that VGA is a real problem. So we'll go and we'll figure out if that's a problem. But at this point, we now have shown that our DRAM looks good, our CPU looks good, our VGA is potentially a problem. So we're going to deal with that next.